John is helping us out today as co-host. Okay, well, in terms of the vocabulary of soul, uh, I write after I sit in the mornings most days, and sort of came together yesterday. What I've been sort of pondering all week, coming from the trip up to Chicago to see my sister and her husband, and which was quite a trip. Thanks for the prayers. At least got me out of O'Hare after about a 6 hour delay, but we got home. And so thanks for your prayers for my sister and her husband as well. Uh, and so there was a lot to um, ponder this week. And so I would always make its way into writing. And then finally, something poked out of the writing, out of a few days of writing, and became this short poem I'm going to read, just 15 lines. It's called The Essence of Soul. The Essence of Soul. And then it'll add to our vocabulary of this mysterious energy called soul. So here it is. Both the Google and Bing search engines classify soul as a noun, a spiritual or immaterial part of a human being or animal regarded as immortal. If you Google it or search the internet, which I use a lot, I love Google. I can just get an image from a poem, and it'll bring the whole poem up. So, but they both Google and Bing had almost the same words. They called soul a noun and a spiritual or immaterial part of a human being or animal regarded as immortal. A noun, a part. Clearly, both the human mind and artificial intelligence, now known as AI, are basically too small to grasp the essence of soul. Soul is an eternal and internal energy system that is the essence of all sentient beings and whose sole purpose is to promote flourishing and wholeness. Soul thrives in the present moment, and especially when the human heart and the sacred heart kiss in contemplation, and neither knows who's kissing who. Soul can ponder and live the unresolved question that the mind can't Google until one fine morning, with no hint of warning, the mystery just unfolds like a rose. Soul is an eternal and internal energy system that is the essence of all sentient beings and whose sole purpose is to promote flourishing and wholeness. Soul thrives in the present moment, and especially when the human heart and the sacred heart kiss in contemplation, and neither knows who's kissing who. Soul can ponder and live the unresolved question that the mind can't Google until one fine morning, with no hint of warning, the mystery, the unresolved question just unfolds like a rose. Okay, well, let me just tease out a little bit there. It'll be part of the mail out tomorrow. New poem. I usually put those up so people can see them. 900 or so people on the mailing list. About 500 tune in every Monday. It's quite amazing. Uh, well, first of all, when it's sort of contradictory for the search engines to say that soul is a noun and a part, both two things that it isn't at all. The soul's a verb. It's active. It's always changing. It's an energy system which never stays the same. So they got it wrong from the get-go. And actually, if you really take Buddhists seriously, there's no such thing as a noun. But well, we'll leave that for later. The second part is the part of, and then they say, immaterial part. Well, that starts to lose the meaning of part. And human beings don't really have parts. We're not like, manufactured stuff that, this pen, you could take it apart. Human beings don't work that way. We're a whole energy system with all these interlocking energy systems, coordinated energy system, and then it says the soul is an immaterial, eternal part. Well, it doesn't really make any sense. It's internally contradicted. So no, the soul is a verb. It's an energy system. It is internal, which means it's in all of us. I think I would expand it beyond. Some people don't think animals have souls, but I would expand it from a Buddhist perspective to say, and most Buddhists don't talk about the soul. The Tibetans do, of course, but I'd say the soul is the part of all sentient beings. It's the essence of all of sentient beings. The word for soul in Greek, and they had two. They had the masculine and feminine soul, so they had both of it. But it was, just to make you alive. That brings the life into it. Zombies, technically, if you watch them on TV anyway, they don't have this. They're soulless. Unfortunately, a lot of our governments, our leaders, our economies are soulless. They don't. They're operating on another, more mechanical idea of profit and loss or whatever. But the soul is anima is the feminine, and animus is the masculine, and they really are married. We're talking about marriage here. Just like our brain has two sides connected by all these axonal fibers. Well, we have, different amounts of feminine soul and masculine. The Greeks thought about this quite a lot, you see. You'd hardly even hear the word mentioned, even in churches, which should be dealing with this, you see. So it's essential. It's an essence. It's not a part, because we have no parts. So start thinking about human beings and sentient beings as energy systems that interlock, that are interdependent. And then you start to break down this idea of some kind of separate self. Joseph Campbell, when he was talking to Bill Moyers in his great thing on myth, the power of myth, he said that Star Wars was the myth for modern day, because it captured in Darth Vader and in Luke, especially, it captured the idea that you can become more machine than human. That's what was happening to Darth. He was a juicy Anakin Skywalker at one time, but little by little, things worked on him, and he became more machine than human. And so that's the new myth. He says, how do we keep our humanity when everything working in the world culture tries to turn us into some kind of zombie robot working all day? It's a good point. And you have to have some sense of soul. It's the animator. It's what keeps us alive. Okay, keeps us human. Now it thrives on the present minute, because we had the poem last week by Machado that says, your soul can literally dry up. I have no roses. All the flowers in my garden are are dead. That's the image of a soul that has, for the time being, become dead. But it can be brought back. And where we're at on any given moment, the soul is about flourishing your life. That's a great word. Your life is, you're not surviving, you're thriving, you're flourishing. And it's towards wholeness. It's toward becoming wholly who you are, you see. That's the soul's soul purpose here. That's what it does. We're meant to flourish. We're meant to become who we're meant to be. An acorn is meant to become a giant oak. Doesn't always make it. Some of the acorns out here in the low road get crushed by the trucks going by. But, that's what we're meant to do, a good image there. So it's about that. And then the image of that the soul really thrives in when you do spiritual practices, and especially when you do meditation or contemplation, whatever you call it. It's this dropping down that we're going to do in a few minutes. And you drop down out of the head where most of us live, me too, down through the body to the heart, this realm of consciousness known as the heart. It's different. The body has its own consciousness. The mind has its own consciousness. We're educated to live like a head on a stick with no body and no heart. That's how the world can become so heartless, you see. So the soul will really be getting its power breakfast when we sit in meditation for 20 minutes today. It really thrives there. And the image that I can't, it's just so delicious. It's just in my mind. It's the image of when the human heart and the sacred heart, the divine heart, meet. That's a definition of soul right there. Again, it's not a noun, it's not in a place, but it's when meeting happens. It's a real soulful visit with my sister for a couple of days because we've been, apart in a lot of ways. She's in Chicago, I'm down here, but I flew up there and we met. And what the meeting is the soul. The soul always is about meeting. And so my image is when the human heart and the divine heart kiss, and neither knows neither knows who's kissing who. Just go back to your last great kiss. Hopefully it's not years ago, but when you kiss somebody might decide, a man might decide to kiss a woman, or a woman decide to kiss a woman, or whatever, we don't know, but somebody decides to kiss the other. But then all bets are off on a great kiss, because at some point you don't know who's kissing who. And I think that's the ultimate thing of what we're showing in that screensaver there, of that image of going down into a kind of crucible, really a kind of meeting place where things happen. Many people, Pam and I went to a 50th anniversary party for our friends George and Donna here. And, what happened with that first kiss? On our first date, when I was getting ready to leave off Pam, I just grabbed her and kissed her. And she was angry because she had this rule that you'd never kiss anybody on a first date. Well, I broke that rule. And then here we are. Yeah. So that idea, when you're meditating, you're actually being present to meet the divine, which is just the energetics that happen. Although you might feel nothing, you're plugging in your soul phone into the circuit, you see, and you're getting juice, even though it might not feel like that, because all the thoughts get in the way and cloud things. Sometimes you really do feel it. You feel something ecstatic, but most of the time, I don't. But you're this being willing to stop what you're doing, stop what you're thinking, and just be there, waiting for. And sometimes you do get that kiss. It's a kind of ecstatic thing. Most of the time, you don't know what's happening, and that's why they say, even in a good kiss, neither one knows who's kissing who. And so there's a lot about not knowing that's involved that we're going to explore, especially next week. We're going to explore working with unresolved questions, questions that can't be Googled. We're going to explore that for the next 2 weeks. I'm going to give you a little homework here when we're through. Uh, and the last of these 3 lines, there was just 5 3-line stanzas in this poem. That boiled down from about 4 pages of writing. So I tend to work. I like to boil it down to the essence. That soul can ponder and live the unresolved questions. Pondering is different than thinking. We know what that is. You're thinking about something that's unresolved and it goes round and round. It's almost like you've got an unresolved question when you're thinking and thinking for days, or at night you're lying in bed thinking and thinking. It's like your wheels are in mud or snow and you're not getting any traction. Well, that's sort of a tip off that this question is not a question for the mind. Okay. It's a question for the heart. And you ponder in the heart, and when the divine heart and the human heart meet, kiss, something happens. Yeah, pondering takes some time. You have to live with certain questions for a while. We don't like to do that. We're living at Google pace, and but the tip off, and this is one of the things I want you to sort of be aware of and take note of before next week, because we're going to actually work with it next week. See how the traditions work with these questions. But the first one is just to be present and notice if you got some that deep question that you just can't resolve because you're in the wrong place. You have to take it down here. We'll talk about that next week. But we have to learn how to work with those kind of questions. See, we have to learn how to, in a way, respect that those need to come from a different realm. We have to go down to the heart, and the soul wraps around the heart. It's the soul is where the meeting of the two hearts happens. You see, and so you got to be in the heart to really have that meeting. You can't think about it. Deep things are too deep to think about. You got to go to the heart. And then at some point in the pondering, some fine morning with no hint of warning, the question opens up, just like a rose opens. You never know when flowers are going to open, and you don't know when these unresolved questions are going to be open to you. The Buddhists have the image of the heart as a lotus opening, you see. It's a beautiful image. It's what I have in the center of loose leaf of our Zendo here. We have a lotus opening, and then in that is the jewel, is in this case we're talking about, the unresolved question. All of a sudden it opens up and you see what it's really about. That's a process you got to learn, and the traditions teach that. We're going to work on that next week. So, I don't normally give homework, but other than I hope you sit every day or as often as you can, and just just try to go down through the body, down into the heart, and just be there for the divine heart, who's always there. But what stands in the middle, of course, which keeps us from realizing it, is all the thinking, all the to-do lists, all these things that seem to be more important. But we'll get to that next week. But today we'll sort of look at this process of just actually going to where you might be able to work with a question that's important, you see. So homework would be, just be aware. You might be actually conscious of an unresolved question that you're having no luck resolving. Sometimes it's a question that can be with you your whole life. And I'm sure we all have those. I'm sure I still have some. The question hasn't even surfaced yet. But So it's just sort of be aware to be looking for something that, it pops its head out and you think your ass off, but you get nowhere. That's the kind of question that we'll learn what to do with precisely next week. And then we'll actually have a little more time the following Saturday where we'll have 4 periods of meditation. And if you still got the question, I learned how to do this from the Zen folks I worked with. But so I'll give you at least what I've learned. But those are the most important questions of all, and we're never trained on how to do it. Pondering is not thinking. It's not ruminating. Ruminating is thinking all the time about something. That's a totally different thing because you're doing it up here where it's like going to the hardware store looking for fresh bread, as the 12-step guys say. You ain't going to find it. You got to go to the bakery where the bread is made, you see. You got to go where the heat is, and that's in the heart. So that's the homework. That's the homework, okay? Just be aware and note. In other words, write it down. If you start to get a handle on it, this is where writing comes in. Just try to write the question that's unresolved. And it might even be a paragraph at the start, because these things are so slippery. But just try to put into words and bring to next Sunday, and then hopefully to the morning retreat on Saturday. Bring the most important unresolved question you have, and we'll have a little teaching on how to work with that. Okay, yeah. Well, John, I think that's good for today.